it's not to say I'm not that person too. I'm just as much as everybody else. So when I'm talking to them, I am talking to me.
Well, here we go, Cliff. So nice to see you again. I know we've done that LinkedIn Live already before, and we chatted a few times, and it's just been
Yes.
honestly incredible conversation. So, what I want to do with these podcasts is showcase to people, who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. So, let's just start right off the bat. Who are you?
I am an ordinary guy who likes to do extraordinary things and remind others they can do the same.
That's beautiful, and I think that's why you and I connect so well, is because that's the same language I would use, right? We're all ordinary human beings trying to do
Yeah.
extraordinary things, and I just
Yeah.
absolutely love that. But your story goes way beyond that. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your story and how you came to be this extraordinary individual you are today?
Yeah. Yeah. So I say it all started at 4, 5, and 6. And Russell Brunson mentions your hero story, the hero's journey, right? And sometimes the funny thing is we don't choose our journey. Like life chooses our journey for us. We just choose how we look at the journey. And early on, my father left when I was 4. He drove away. I knew he wasn't coming back. My mom said he was going to come back, but I was really good at reading energy. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but I'm like, yeah, he's not coming back. At 5, my grandfather passed away, and that scared the living shit out of me. I mean, there's no other way to put that. It locked me up, and I had a moment to coach myself. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but I coached myself. I went through the grieving process, and I ultimately said, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to live as much life as I can. That's what I focused on. And when I was 6, my mom remarried to the guy I call dad to this day. And so my framework was kind of like, okay, there's people who are supposed to be there for you, and they're just not going to be there for you for whatever reason. Then there's people who don't have to be there for you, and they're going to be there for you for whatever reason. And we're all going to die. So live life to the fullest. Like explore, um, get dirty, learn lessons, figure things out, put it together, and have a lot of fun while you're going through the process. And yeah, I challenge myself to constantly grow, constantly expand, and I'm always learning lessons to this day. I got to step inside of a UFC cage. I got to step inside of a Bellator cage. And one of the biggest lessons in that time was everything starts and ends right here in the brain. Like if you allow your brain to take you over, it's going to take you over. And if you can focus the brain and be intentional with the brain, uh, you'll shock yourself and you'll shock others along the way. And when I went from my transition from that into the business world, it was kind of funny because I didn't know I was going to keep stepping into an arena. I thought my arena days were done. I thought I was like, all right, well, now it's time to go the business route. And I went the business route specifically because I wanted to be able to support my family effectively. I wanted to make the money to support my family. And I learned really quickly there's a lot of lessons that you have to learn in that, just like in fighting. Like you think it's just two people punching and kicking each other, and it's so much more than that. Well, business is much the same thing. You think it's, oh, I just have to talk to people. And um, Dan Kennedy actually says it best. It's message to market match. It's figuring out your message and your market and matching the two. And easy enough to say, but that's the same thing as like, yeah, it's just as easy as punching a high level athlete who doesn't want you to punch them back. Like it's kind of like, okay, that's not as easy as I thought it was. Until you figure out how to do it. Once you figure out how to do it, it gets easier and easier. And I know Bruce Lee, he says to an amateur and to a professional, a punch is just a punch. But it's all those nuances in between where you're figuring out those pieces. And so now I support other business owners going through the same thing, going through the same journey, because it's not the easiest journey. It's not the easiest journey. And I think transparency is important. And I think customization is important as well. It's saying, like, okay, what business do you want and why do you want that business? And that's the question I always start with everybody is, what do you want and why do you want it?
Yeah, that's incredible, and I really like how you focus on everything starts up here, right? It's all about the mindset, and
Yeah.
it's obviously probably was traumatizing at 4, 5, and 6, but at the same time, those experiences put that thought already into your head, that ultimately set you up for all the successes in your life, right? I mean, that's and that's the kind of stuff that most 4, 5, and 6 year olds don't have. I mean, I see this with my own kids, and in the grand scheme
Mm-hmm.
of things, they live a fairly sheltered life, right? And I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
my oldest is 10, and she's just now undergoing this puberty training at her school, and that's kind of traumatizing to her, right, at 10. So it's
Yeah.
you're right. It's the coming of age. Obviously, that's important and that's necessary. And obviously we try to support her as much as we can. But you definitely had a different developmental path, I would say, as a result of all the events that transpired at such a young age for you, which really set the stage for you developing a strong mindset. And the interesting thing there too is, as a fighter, you obviously have some physical strength, right? Some physical skills and prowess, and yet it's the mind that wins fights, isn't it?
Yeah. Every time. Like, we're all fighting for something. Sometimes we never know that until we're at the end of our life. Sometimes people get lucky. I happened to get lucky and I got to see that there was going to be an end of my life. That was the gift my grandfather gave to me. At 5, I got to see, hey, there's an end game here. And I know that everybody has an idea that they're going to die, but there's nothing more real than when you're actually going in it. That's what I love about fighting is it you sign a contract and it kind of feels real. Like, you signed a contract and then you're warming up in the backstage, and actually no, there's a piece behind before that. You start training and you're getting ready for the fight, and that kind of feels real. Like, oh, I'm training for a fight. This is a little more real. And then you're in the backstage and you're getting your hands taped up. And then it starts, oh crap, things are getting really real. Like, I'm really getting ready to do this thing. And your mind starts messing with you too. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why are we taping our knuckles up right now? Well, and then when we start stepping to the cage, it's like, yeah, we signed up for this thing. And I love how Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's the truth. Like, but if you can get punched, you can learn how to plan after the punch too. The first time you get punched, you're not going to do it right. The first time you get punched by Mike Tyson, I haven't been punched by him yet, but I don't ever planned on being punched by him, but it would probably be a little bit different. But if you can get back up from it, if you can get back up from that, you will shock yourself and shock others. And so I'm that reminder of everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. My message is you can get back up because you will get punched in the face. It's going to happen. Whether it's Mike Tyson or somebody else, it's going to happen. But if you can get back up, you will shock yourself, and it will be better the second time around. You'll be better than the first time you had it happen to you, and you said, "Oh crap, what do I do?" So I just remind people, keep getting up.
Yeah, I love that. And you're so right. We all have fights, right? And they're not all physical fights like what you have been through. Yeah, but when it comes to Mike Tyson, maybe it's not even the punch, maybe it's the bite you have to look out for, right? But
Yeah.
but yeah, I wanted to ask you something just from my own ignorance. So I know a little bit about UFC just as an outsider. I haven't really watched any big matches, but you mentioned the Bellator or some Bellatori or something. I
Mhm.
don't know what that is.
Mhm. Yeah, so Bellator was actually competing with the UFC. It's just a different organization. Clearly not as well of a known organization, but it's like second to the UFC, and even now I don't even know if that's true because I know PFL has been making quite a run. So PFL might be second. I haven't heard a lot from Bellator. It might I don't know if it got absorbed or not. I'd have to actually look into that. But in the time, they were second to the UFC when I was in it.
Gotcha. Okay. So are your fighting days over then?
Yeah, I
But your
retired
training
in
days are not.
2017. No, those will never be over. Yeah, I will. I might fight one day again too. I don't know. Like the reason I even stopped was I had my first son, and when they get old enough, I don't know. Like I might come back into it. We'll see. You know, like even Jake Paul and Mike Tyson are getting ready to fight, so crazier things have happened. I always say.
Yeah. No, that's so true. So, what do you do now then? You've transitioned out of fighting, and what do you do now?
Yeah, so I help business owners specifically, and I help the drivers. And the drivers are they're going to drive into the wheels fall off. They can't help themselves but to drive, even if they're driving in the wrong direction. You're either going to drive in the wrong direction or the right direction, and my job is to help make sure they're driving in the right direction. And I help business owners put their minds in place and also get the right systems, the right tools, and the right processes in place because it makes life a lot easier if you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it's actually serving you. And what's interesting, this is from the E Myth, Michael Gerber. He talks about business is about systems and then putting people in the systems to work the system. And sometimes people create these businesses, but they're really just creating a jail cell for themselves, and they don't even know that they've done that. And
Yeah.
I'm proof of that. I went through that process too and said like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I doing it this way? And you want to create something that can work with or without you. Ultimately we oftentimes become the bottleneck of our own business.
Yeah, that's so true. Or a lot of entrepreneurs also just create another job for themselves, right? And so,
Yeah.
how'd you get to be in this position to help other business people? I mean, how does fighting translate into coaching business people?
Yeah. So the same challenge is the same challenge, and it's an internal challenge. So the problem's never outside of us. The problem's usually inside of us. And when we ask ourselves, well, what is it that we want to do and why do we want to do it? We can get really real and raw and deep with ourselves. So I'll give you an example. There's business owners who make a lot of money. They're doing very well, but they're still chasing the dream that they're chasing because, and I do this to myself too. Sometimes I feel like I don't have enough. And when I get enough, then I'll be in this position to. And the truth is,
Mm,
you always have more than enough. Like that's the truth of it. There's always more than enough. There's a reason why you're stopping yourself from getting the thing that you want. And when you can really open up to the truth in that and go like, wait a minute, why am I not doing this? Why am I not creating this thing? And there's always new levels of it too, because I've gone through this journey and I continue to go through the journey because the process never says, and you've made it, just stop. No, once you go through it, then you're most likely looking to go through it again and saying, holy crap, I had a heck of a ride. I want to be in my deathbed and saying to myself, like, wow, that was a lot of fun.
yeah. And this is again just one of those themes where you and I just totally vibe on, right? Because I too say stop chasing achievements, start aligning your life with purpose. Because in my own life, in my own career, especially my medical career, that's all I was doing. It was chasing these achievements, right? Finish high school with honors, finish
Mm-hmm.
college with honors, get to med school, get to a residency, right? And all these steps along the way where I was always chasing the next big thing. And by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, okay, so what's next? Right? There was no more next. There was
Mhm.
no more
Yep.
level. There's, at least academically through the process, I had reached the end. So, how can someone, I think somebody that is becoming aware that they are maybe misaligned with their approach, right? They realize they're chasing accomplishments or material items, money, right? Instead of looking for that deeper purpose, those people they're easy to work with because they already have that recognition, and they might be asking themselves, what else is there? Like, what more can I work for? But what about the people that don't have that recognition yet? How could someone who's just living their life maybe become aware of the fact that they are chasing things instead of a deeper meaning, a purpose?
That's a great question. Am I doing this? And this is where it gets interesting because it's kind of a mind F when you think about it. Am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for others? And that is a tough one because a fish
Yeah.
doesn't know it's in the water until it's out of the water. And so you might think you're doing things for yourself, but you might have conditionings that you didn't even know even existed. And so at
That is
times you
true.
got to start asking those deep questions and having deep conversation with the right people who are going to be able to call you out in your BS. Like I have my own coaches and they can call me out on my BS. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know because you're conditioned to be that way. So if you're conditioned to be a certain way, how can you know any different?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
no,
we
we all have these blind spots, and I agree with you. Like in working with my coaches for myself, they call me out on some of my BS a lot of times. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that I was so dense and boneheaded and didn't see that, right? But we all have these blind spots, and that's really one of the powers of having a coach who creates that safe space and has an objective input into your life that isn't, your
Mhm.
mom who's so proud of you, your wife that's going to support you, or your spouse or partner, or whoever, right, or your kids that love you unconditionally, right? It's someone who has complete objectivity and can say, "Wait a second, why are you thinking this way? Is there not a different way we could look at this?" And that's really one of the powers of
Yep.
coaching, right? And so I agree with you. That's why I love working with
Yep.
the coaches I have because I know that I have these blind spots. And I guess that's the other things, right? There's so many people, especially in my world where I come from, the medical world, especially surgeons, where
Right.
people are just so, I don't know, I hate to say the word arrogant, but they're so, very self-centered and they think they know everything because they are conditioned to be that way. When I went through my surgical training, it was
Yep.
always the idea was, no, this is your patient, you're the surgeon, it's your problem. There's no one else who's coming to help. What are you going to do? Right? And so we're conditioned into not asking for help because we are the help, right? People come to us and we need to have
Mhm.
the answers, but we all, as a result of that, still have blind spots we don't get to see, which I guess is sort of maybe a follow-up to my previous question. How can people become more open and accepting of the fact that they have blind spots and be more willing to accept help and maybe even hire a coach as a result of that?
My answer, because so many things are running through my brain with the question, is it depends.
Right.
And what I mean by
By this.
this,
Sure.
if you have a great coach and you have someone who's ready, they'll be able to put it right in front of them. And they'll be like, don't hit them. But then when you talk about being boneheaded, if you have a great coach, I believe they won't try and crack that, but they will plant a seed. And they can actually follow up with the seed if the coach is even open to doing that. Because it takes two to tangle. Like I'm not if a person's so boneheaded where they're like, no, it's my way and you can't help me. Well, then I can't help you because you've literally said that I can't, so I'm not even gonna try. Like, why are we even having the conversation? But if a person says to me, you know what, my life's a wreck, I'm making a ton of money, but I want something different, well, now I have something to play with. And if I can show that my thing can serve them, and I have to believe my thing can serve them too. When I have those in place, I ask the right questions and get them to see that they can be helped. Because even then, like, if you're selling someone, you're selling them on seeing that they can do it. You're not selling them on your thing, your product, your service. I can change you. Well, the best kind of proof to changing someone is letting them know that they can be changed in the first place.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and that's the I think that's the true power in coaching versus mentoring, for example, in that you really guide the person to help them come to their own conclusions versus just simply telling them this is what you need to think about, this is what you know how to think, right? It's much more powerful that way because we're really building people up ultimately to be more independent, to be more successful, to have that internal locus of control versus giving that away to someone else, which is kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier with the the chasing those achievements. In some way, you're living someone else's dream by doing so, right? You living the dream that society has for you, your family has for you, your circles have for you, instead of what do you actually want, right? Well, who are you and what do you
Yeah.
actually want? So coming back to the coaching
Yeah.
thing, who's your ideal client? Like who do you like to work with? Who should reach out to you?
Yeah. My ideal clients, they're hungry individuals who want more. They're business owners. They're heart centered. They want to create a big impact. They want to change the world for the better. And some of them are ignorant. They don't know exactly how to do it, but some of them do know how to do it. And what I like about the ones who know that they need support, they know they need a team. And when you know you need a team, you're more inclined to have that conversation and see if it even makes sense. Those are my people. The ones who say, you know what? I want to change the world so badly, I can't do this on my own. Because I'm that person. I said I want to influence 1 billion people and I went balls to the wall. Like that's what I do. Like I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And then I burnt out and I was bedridden for 10 days. It sucks. But it was a lesson learned. I couldn't do it by myself. So I needed to learn my lesson
Right.
too. You know, like it's part of the game.
No, absolutely. And the one thing that I always say is collaboration beats competition any day. And that's where teamwork
Yeah.
really comes in. Good leadership, right? Working with other people will always be a better result for everyone involved than trying to do it on your own. You'll get further, you'll get there faster, and just like you, I say the same thing, right? I like to work with the people that are willing to ask the toughest question, tackle the biggest problems, and make a difference in the world. So I love that.
Yeah.
So working with you, I know you have the fighters formula because obviously you are a fighter. What does that look like? Like someone
Mhm.
who's going to work with you, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, yeah. So I start with getting to know them, asking questions, seeing if it's even a good fit. Because you don't go into a Nike store, right? And just say, I want that on the shelf. And just walk out with your shoes. You want to try them on. You want to get a feel. You want to see if it works. And you want to play with them. And so for me, I just see what is their dream? What is their vision? What do they want to create? And what are their roadblocks? Or what do they want to explore? Maybe they want to explore something they haven't explored before. You know what I loved about being a fighter is I have exploration that other people haven't had, but that exploration, let me tell you, it's freeing. It's a freeing place because I go, oh, this is a courage game. It's always about courage. Even if you're so courageous to get where you want to go, you can still be your own bottleneck. Because if you're good enough, like I can force things and make them work, and people can. There's powerhouses out there who can absolutely force. But the question is, what are they missing with the forcing? Like, are I'm making tons of money. Well, is that what you want to do? Or do you want to hang out with your kids more? Do you want to hang out with your spouse more? Do you want to live more of your life? What do you want to do? And I don't know the answer. That's why I ask those questions. I want to know where they're coming from. I want to know that they've actually created the business they wanted to create. And if not, why not? Why hasn't that come into fruition? What's the challenges here? And what I realized, there's a lot of people who haven't created the vision that they want to create. And surprisingly enough, it's the fear of even saying what you want. Because when we say what we want, why do we not have it right now? And I know some people say, like, oh, well, you got to grind, you got to hustle, you got to, do you? Is that true? Or is that another conditioning? Have we been conditioned that we have to hustle our way through life? Because if we drive to work just easily. It's a flow. It's easy to do. Well, why is that easy to do? Because you've been conditioned by the society to say, well, this is what you do.
Yeah. No, that's so true. The thought that came to my mind, especially with the conditioning, is how much my work in this space has influenced my parenting. And what I've really come to realize is that parenting is the first exposure we all have to leadership. And because there's no handbook on parenting, I mean, we've been parenting for tens of thousands of generations, and yet we still don't have the perfect handbook on how to parent. Right? Every generation has to figure it out again for themselves. Um, there's a lot of there's probably a lot of leadership problems in this world that could be solved by better parenting. So I'm wondering how all of your mindset work, all of your thoughts and ideas, your experiences have changed and influenced your own parenting for your children.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love my kids so much. They're good kids, 7 and 3. And they tell you there's two things that um a kid needs to really be successful. Two things. It's how many words they're given, like how many actual words you say to them, and if they're loved.
Mhm.
And I go, huh, that's interesting. Only two things. I started looking at like my fitness journey, exercise and eat right, like two things.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I'm starting to look and I go, is it always that simple? Yeah, it is. But we've been taught to believe that it's more complicated than it is. Therefore, we live in complexity. And you go like, no, well, there's this
Yeah.
problem and this problem. I'm not denying any of the problems in the world. I'm not. But what I do know is whatever we focus on grows. So that man who left me when I was 4, I love him. I don't know him, but I love him. He was a human being who did the best that he could in the moment that he did it. And so when I just take the time to love people, my life gets better. And so I just focus on people being the most loving that they can be because I think a loving person is a learner. They like to learn. They want to support people. They want to help people. It's literally in our nature. The only time we hurt people is when we feel like we've lost something or we're lacking something or we need to do something or we need to prove something. And so my leadership has come
Yeah.
from, they say, be the change. So that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to love my kids up fully by listening to them, seeing what their love languages are. And they have two different love languages. They're actually really cool.
Messy.
One loves to be held, like loves it. The other one, he likes video games, he loves math, and he really loves to be listened to. They both love to be listened to.
Mhm.
But the other one, he needs to be held. He's like, "Dad, up, hold me." and I hold him. Hold him more than I would like
Yeah.
sometimes because sometimes I'm like, "Hey, you're getting kind of heavy, buddy," but but I'm gonna hold him. I'm gonna hold him, and I'm gonna support him,
Yes.
and I'm gonna love my kids up by listening to them. I got 2 ears and 1 mouth. They got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we're both gonna use those in the most effective ways that we can. We're gonna support one another. I'm gonna listen to them, and they're gonna listen to me. I say a good leader is both a good leader and a good follower. I think both are important because sometimes when a kid can see that daddy's following them or that mommy's following them, well, that gives them pride. That gives them joy. It makes them feel good. My kids actually like being independent. I was like, oh crap, I'm like training them to be independent early on. They like to exercise. They like to laugh and giggle. They're infectious towards people. And I also remind them, I go, um, well, be careful if mommy and daddy are not around. Be aware of your surroundings all the time. It's a very abundant space, but that abundance means both good and bad stuff can happen in that space.
Right. Right. That's one of the things that always fascinates me about our conversations where I always think like we came from the same family, which obviously we did not, but the words he used and the way he described things is just the exact same way I would say any and all of that, right? And so the only thing I would add to
Thanks
everything
for
you
the
said
knowing. We're
is
amazing,
I
Felix.
it's just it's amazing, right? But so the only thing I would add to that line of thought is I have said before, and I continue to say that what makes a great coach is love. Quite simply, love, right? A love for the other human being, your client, a love to want to get to know them and truly understand them, a love to want to see them improve themselves, get better, succeed, a love to want to see them succeed enough that you're willing to push them out of their comfort zone, right? A love to want to
Yeah.
see them grow. And so, like you said, it comes back down to that love. So no, I mean, I couldn't have said any better myself. I wouldn't have said any differently myself. So that's always amazing.
Yeah.
Let me turn the conversation more onto you here for a second. I want to ask you some questions out of my simple networking toolbook
Yeah.
to get to know Cliff just a little bit better. The first question actually comes out of the second edition, which is not in print yet, but is where is your favorite thinking spot? Like, where do your best ideas come from?
Wow. That is a great question. And I'm going to be a jackie again and say it depends. So I have multiple places. Uh, yeah, multiple places. One, I sit and I ask God questions. I just ask him questions and I listen. I listen really closely. The other place, I speak to my tribe, the intelligence of my tribe. The other place, and I don't mean to sound rude in any way, but I listen to the stupidity of others. And what I mean by stupidity, it's people speak from not having experience to things like they've had the experience. And so I listen to that because it helps me understand how blind people can be. And I don't mean that to be rude in any way. It's just if I were to speak on fighting, I would say, oh, it's just two guys punching each other. Until I actually did my first sparring match, I really quickly learned no, it wasn't that. But I like listening to that because I can see what people are thinking and why they're thinking what they're thinking.
Yeah,
Maybe they're justified in their thinking. Like they're not saying, well, let me speak in ignorance. No, they're justified in the thinking that they have, but it still is in ignorance if they don't have the experience. So I go to those three
yeah,
types of places. I like to go to those three types of places because it allows for a bridge. Because if you can't speak their language, even if they're wrong, well, you can't help them get to their freedom either. If you can't speak their language, you can't support them. And so I think everyone deserves to be supported. And in that, I listen closely to the people who have
yeah,
experience and get it, to the people who don't have experience and don't get it, and to God. Because God is He's that all loving being. He loves you no matter what.
Right. Again, this is beautiful. Like, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, that we have, one mouth but two ears, right? And it goes back to you really wanting to understand the world and listening to the world. It reminds me actually of a project I had in college where I had this website called Campus Brains where I would post really stupid shit people said that I overheard, or things that I saw,
Mm-hmm.
that were just that made no sense, right? And I did
Mm-hmm.
it for comical relief. But in
Yeah.
retrospect, looking back at all the stuff I posted, there was a lot of, like I said, just ignorance about the world. And what I see now as a
Yeah.
father, especially the younger ones, I see them say things a lot that I know they picked up from either me or their mom or someone else having said that without knowing really the context that we even said it in. They're just saying it almost like a mirror, and that's how they learn about the world. And so, even into adulthood, we all still need to learn and adapt. To bridge that
Yeah.
ignorance, right? To get rid of that and truly understand what it is that we're actually looking at, what we're talking about, what we're seeing, right? All those things. So, yeah, no,
Absolutely.
I again,
I
I just
I
absolutely
even look
agree.
at yeah, I look at like, was I on episode 33? Just to make a joke out of it. Because I say when I talk about people, it's not to say I'm not that person too. I'm just as much as everybody else. So when I'm talking to them, I am talking to
Right,
me. And I say, take what you do seriously, just don't take yourself too seriously. So it's like I'm not here to
yeah,
attack or poke or jab at people. It's just to say, okay, what do you like? What don't you like? And how are you always changing and adapting and loving better? I want to be, I want to love people fully. And just off of what you're talking about, the coaching and the love, when you love people fully, the only judgment you have is the judgment for them to be their best. That's it. That's all you want for them.
right, 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 exactly. Yeah. No, so again, I mean, I completely agree 100% with you on any and all of the above. So let me ask you a different question about you, right? Again,
Yeah.
these are about Cliff. So I'm sure you have traveled far and
Yeah.
wide for all your fights, but what is a place you haven't been to yet, but you really want to visit?
I want to go to Egypt. And I know you said it's about Cliff, but the only reason I do want to go to Egypt is because my wife wants to go to Egypt. I'm not a huge traveler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because, okay, this is where my mind's nuts. This is where my mind's nuts. Well, I call myself an empath. And I'm telling you, a person could tell me about something and I'm already there, like in my head. Because I like hearing people's stories. It's really fun to me. And even when I'm on my fighter's journey, I'm not trying to go on a tangent, I'm coming back. But on my fighter's journey, I remember I told Trevor, I go, Trevor, I want to be in the UFC in less than a year. And he's like, it's not happening. There's no way. Well, it had already happened in my mind. It was already there. So look, are we going to do the stuff to make it a reality or are we not going to do the stuff? Like, I go, Trevor, we got to try. Can
yeah.
we at least try? And he goes, all right, we'll try. Felix, we got there in 10 months. We got there in 10 months. So that's just to say,
There you
it
go.
does all start with a thought. Yeah, everything starts with a
Yeah.
thought. So, Egypt, like, here we come. We're going to go to Egypt sometime.
That's fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. All right. This is my third and final question for me. And it's the
Okay.
oddest question I've ever asked, but it's also the reason I keep coming back to it and ask every guest this question because it's just a fun question. So, would you rather
Yeah,
have a cat that barks or a dog that meows?
that's interesting. Can I have both of them? If I had to
Sure,
choose, it would
absolutely.
definitely, yeah, I would like to have both because that's just cool. Like, hey, look at my dog that meows and my cat that barks. But if I had to choose, it would be a cat that barks.
All right. Fair enough. That's awesome. Actually, yeah, everybody has come. Most people end up choosing either the cat or the dog, but there's a few odd ones
Yeah.
out there. But besides yours, the other one that comes to mind was Michelle Molitor a few weeks. She wanted a bird that meows because she has birds. She has a Goffin cockatoo, and so she wanted a bird that
All right, you
meows.
you have to introduce me to her because I want to find the people who kind of go off the rails a little bit and change up the
Oh,
question that you
absolutely.
ask. Yeah, those are the
Yeah.
those are
So
the
she
most
is
fun
a
people to me.
No worries. I'll make the introduction. She's a fantastic coach. She's also a hypnotherapist, and she combines
Awesome.
those two modalities. So I'm sure you guys can buy pretty hard on all of that. So the next question for
Nice.
you comes from the previous guest. So every guest gets to
Okay.
ask the next guest a question, not knowing who that person is or what we're even going to talk about. So this question comes to you from Abigail Burke, who wants to know, what are you? Are you a body? Are you a mind and body, or are you a body, mind, and spirit? So do you
Yeah,
self as just body and mind?
I'm a spirit having a human experience. And I'll tell you, in knowing that I'm a spirit having a human experience, sometimes I forget that I'm human and I get myself in trouble, get myself burnt out and messed up.
That's fantastic. But those are sometimes the best experiences in life, aren't they?
They are like, so when you said your first form of leadership comes in parenting, like I agree because you're leading your kids, and there's the other piece where the first time I ran, have you ever ran the mile? Like in high school or middle school or elementary school?
Yeah,
You
yeah, we
have?
did that in high school. Yeah.
Okay. So we had that in middle school where we had to run the mile. And I ran my first mile and I sprinted in front of, like, I sprinted the first 100 yards. I died. Like, absolutely died. It was terrible. My mile time wasn't very good
Yeah.
the first time. And I bring this up to say, well, I couldn't have known that until I either experienced it myself or I saw someone else who experienced it. So if I saw someone sprint 100 yards and then die like that, then the odds of me doing that would not have been so high. But it was my first
Good
time
point.
really, really running. And so I did it very, very bad. And I go, oh my goodness, we're all leaders all the time. And it's whether we
Yes.
see it or
Yes.
not. The leader is the one who goes first. That's all it is. That's all they are. They go first. And then the tribe goes, oh, well, I could do that or I can't do that. And so I'm like, oh crap,
Right.
we're always leading all the time. Like that's where I remind even my son. My son, like if me and my wife are not communicating effectively and he's the calm one, I say, good leadership, son. Good job, buddy. And so it's a constant reminder. I do my best to remind everyone that they're a leader. If you're talking about a leader being a
Yes.
certain way, then be something different. That's the way that I think leadership should be. Just be the change is what they talk about.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. And you're so right. We are always, in any human interaction, we're all leaders. And it's not even based on rank hierarchy, because I might learn something from you. You might learn something from me. It's a give and take. It's a collaboration, but we all need leadership, right? Because you may know something I don't know, where I can take that from you, and vice versa. So you're absolutely right. I think in any human interaction, we are leaders. But I think the where a lot of people end up failing is just from a poor parenting upbringing, where they just don't have those skills developed enough. But the great news is, I think leadership can be learned at any age. You don't have to succumb to
Yeah.
the parenting that didn't instill those skills in you. Leadership can be learned by anybody. Well, all right,
Yeah.
it's your turn to pass
100%.
it forward. What question would you like to ask the next guest, not knowing who it is or what we're going to be talking about?
Okay, okay. So your question about the dog that barks, or the dog that meows, or the cat that barks.
Yeah, that's it.
I want to keep it going, and I want to ask them if they could have any kind of ear other than a human ear. What kind of animal ears would they have?
That's
And you talked about Mike
that's
Tyson and
cool. I
biting,
like
and like I'm like, yeah, I'm like, huh, this is gonna be really really interesting. I'm really curious what kind of ears
ah,
they would have. And you gotta let me know too. Like you gotta send it to me because I want to know what kind of ears they have.
yeah. We have talked a lot about ears on this episode. So speaking of ears, anybody listening to this episode who wants to reach out to you and connect, how can they best do so?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Clifford Starks, and you can also find me on Facebook Messenger. And yeah, just let me know you listen to the episode. Love to connect with you. I liked connecting with people. So if I can support you or you can support me, we'll figure it out. And I love how you talk about a collaboration, Felix. And I'll also say, so this is where it gets crazy. All right. So in fighting, usually they talk about competition. You're competing. And then I realized, oh crap, like there's the golden ages of boxing. When you got to see two high level boxers, it was great for the boxers, and it was great for the promoters, and it was great for the audience. So I go, oh, wow. The best kind of competition is collaboration, even when we think of the word competition. Because we're thinking, like, well, there's got to be a winner
Yeah.
and a loser. Like, that's not true. Because if the loser loses, they have the mentality. Those champions have such a mentality. They're going back to the drawing board. They're like, "Oh
Hmm.
man, that was a great fight." I've lost. I've been the one who hasn't gotten their hand raised in certain fights, and I've learned so much from them. And so I go, "Oh, well, the best type of living is collaborative living." So I love what you said, Felix. And it's just a reminder
Yeah.
for everyone,
Yeah.
we're probably collaborating more than we think.
No, you're so right. And if anything, I would say is the only person you should ever be in competition with is yourself, right? You know, you always want to be
Yeah.
better today than you were yesterday and aim to become better tomorrow than you are today. So really the only person you're ever competing with is yourself. And anything else, collaboration, gets you much further,
Hmm.
gets you much faster. I love it. So awesome. And any
Yeah.
last words from you to the world?
Yeah. Great questions, Felix. Thank you. I knew we were going to have some fun. Rest of the world, keep being amazing. And if you're not feeling amazing, um, go find something that makes you feel amazing. Because when you feel amazing, the world gets better because of it. So keep being inspired, keep being amazing, keep having fun on the journey, keep believing in yourselves. And if you are those things, pass it along to somebody else.
Yes. That's so awesome. Well, thanks for doing this, Cliff. It's been once again an absolute wonderful conversation, and thank you for doing
Yeah,
this.
thank you.
I can't wait to see what's next for both of us. So, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother.
All right, I really hope you enjoyed that. The questions that I asked towards the end are from my new book, The S.I.M.P.L.E Networking Tool. It's a great book that redefines how we network. It's all about who someone is and not what they are. So if you want to get your own book, it's available on Amazon. If you want to learn more, there's videos about it here on YouTube. So you can check out this amazing new social science experiment. I'm so excited for it. If you do get a book and you do start your own, please let me know how it goes and what your experience is like. I'm working on the second edition and I want to make it the best one yet. So be sure to tag me, let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching.